Hi, I'm Kraft, and today I'm going to be telling you about how being egotistical, lazy, and not particularly smart has led me down a path of running a charity that helps an often forgotten group of people be able to play video games. Let's jump into it. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the controller project. This is something that I run. I've been doing for the past 10 years where I make custom controllers for people with limb difference. Things have changed a lot over the years, but a few things have stayed the same. Let me just kind of explain to you a little bit of the drive and the impetus behind what it is I'm doing right now. But keep in mind, these are all things that are delivered for free to people who need them. So let's get started here. The controller project focuses on a very specific set of people. Um, there are, the game companies, of course, appeal to what they consider to be the broadest audience with their game controllers. They make a standard controller that fits the most amount of people they can sell it to and functions as they feel the best to its abilities. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where we have things like Switch boxes and now the Xbox accessible controller, which are kind of a complete setup, a complete custom setup. And if you look at this chart of completely fabricated and made up numbers that I pulled out of my head that don't really apply to anything, you can see that on the far one side you have out of the box, which is a standard controller. On the other side you have a full rig. We look at a standard controller and we can see the cost is cheap because it comes with your device. The availability is high because, again, it comes with your device and you can buy these everywhere. And the need, of course, is high because there's a massive market for regular ones. Then we go all the way over to the other end to the full rig, something like an Xbox adaptable controller, and we can see that the cost goes up considerably. The Xbox adaptable controller, I don't know the most recent exact price, but I think it was roughly $150 for the beginning setup. So, these are about $40 a piece to $60 a piece. So you're looking at a considerable price increase just to get started. The need is compared to the market for a standard controller very small, and the availability, unfortunately, is kind of small as well. But there's a group in the middle. You can see this highlighted area. There's this group in the middle that, as I've found out, is massive. And that's people who a small modification would make their gaming experience much better or even possible in the first place. Consider maybe you have one finger that has a problem or you're missing one hand. You don't necessarily need an entire Xbox adaptive controller or switch box or mouth controller or something like that. But a standard controller maybe doesn't work for you if you're missing, let's say, these two fingers or have limited mobility in your thumbs. So there's this huge group of people. Again, I made up all these numbers, but we'll say that it's just a very large group of people that would benefit from a small modification. And those modifications don't exist. And generally speaking, you can't go out and buy something to move your buttons to the other side or to push the trigger from the other side, even though it could be something as simple as a popsicle stick with a little bit of hot glue. That's just not something that's available out there to purchase. So I saw a huge need for this area, and I started working on this. About 10 years ago, I started building these things. I actually started with completely custom ones, but this is what I moved into, was this kind of area. And this is the way that I used to do it. For about 10 years, I would crack open a controller, I would solder in some wires, I'd hot glue buttons on the outside of the controllers. It's ugly, but it did the job. And it took about an hour, 2 hours once I got the process down. It was fairly reliable, but it's ugly. It reduces the life of the controller. It's just not a great way to do things. And it's a lot of work. It's a whole lot of work. And, that's my time that was being taken up. And the fact is, I'm lazy. Okay? I, I didn't want to do all that work for people and get like one or two controllers done a month at most. So I turned to 3D printing. With 3D printing, initially I could do things like print a whole stack of extensions for thumbsticks or extensions to make the triggers work on the other side. It saved me tons of time. And since I'm lazy, I loved that and I stuck with it. And as it turns out, that laziness pushed me into 3D printing, and I realized that's where I should have been all along, because there are massive benefits to using 3D printing for this very specific use case, which is, that area in between a normal controller and a whole kit. Those benefits are, well, it's cheap. It's super cheap. If you look at this picture here, this is one of these kits, a single hand controller kit for the PlayStation, and you're looking at maybe $1 worth of 3D printing filament there. And I can pump out maybe 1 or 2 of these a day if I keep my printers going all the time. So it's very cheap. On top of that, there's the benefit that the design process here can be distributed. I don't need to do all the design. I can have other people do the design, or I can design something and email that design to somebody on the other side of the planet, which is insanely powerful. We'll get to that in a little bit, but this leads right into the distributed manufacturing aspect. I don't need to be the only one making these anymore. Once I moved to 3D printing, I didn't have to have someone ship me a controller, crack it open, solder stuff, put it back together, ship it back. Instead, I could print a part and send it to them, or I could send a file to somebody close to them who could then print it for them. And then the last part is, with these designs, once I realized this was important, I made it so that these things could be self-installed. Now, this is beneficial in 2 ways. One, I can just send it to a client and they can install it, which is great. It saves everybody time, it saves everybody effort, it saves everybody shipping. But it's also important because there is a level of self-sufficiency there. When a client feels that they are helping themselves, they install this themselves, they ordered the parts, they put them on the controller themselves. There is power in that ability to help yourself that I feel is extremely important in this. And it's not out front, it's not documented on all my stuff, but that self-reliance aspect is one of the core things that I try to incorporate in all of this, because I think it's very important. So, one thing that this has done, moving to 3D printing, has allowed me to drastically increase the amount of people I could help in a month. This right here is kind of fudged numbers that I made up again, but I was doing 1 or 2 controllers previously when I was doing it by hand, where I would crack them open and solder them. But once I moved to a 3D printed design workflow, I could just be printing these things constantly. And when somebody contacted me, I could kind of cobble together the parts to do a custom solution for them and mail those parts to them. So I went from roughly 1 to 2 a month to 6 to 8 a month I was doing for a while. But again, I'm lazy, so I want other people to do the work for me. Last year, I decided to open this up, and I held a contest and I started taking in volunteers. The amount of people that want to help is overwhelmingly wonderful. Right now I have over 150 people on file that are willing to volunteer in at least 19 countries. It gets kind of hard to track this because I have people reach out all the time and say, hey, I'd be happy to help. And I don't always come and update my PowerPoint, but I believe right now it's 19 countries and over 150 people who have volunteered to work. So I've set up somewhat of a workflow where a client will reach out to me, they'll explain what they need, I try to find a solution for them that already exists within my library of parts, and then I find a volunteer that is in their country at least to save on shipping. I give them the files, they print the parts, they send it to the client. Now that is an ideal situation. There are some problems with this that have popped up over time that I've come to recognize. To be brutally honest, right now with the amount of time I have to spend on this, because I still have a day job, other hobbies, a small farm with goats and a donkey, and a family with teenage children that I spend time with. With the amount of time that I have to devote to this, what I've found is most of the time I can just 3D print the parts and ship them at the same amount of time and effort as it takes to email volunteers, because there's a lot of emailing back and forth. The volunteers have questions. They've never done this before usually. Sometimes their machine isn't up to snuff and I end up being customer support for their machine somehow, trying to get their 3D printer to the quality it needs to be for some of these parts. Sometimes they just disappear and I'm, pestering them over time and then they don't reply. So then I have to find another volunteer. They just disappear. Or sometimes they print the wrong parts and they sent those. That happens a lot because a lot of these parts are left or right-handed and it's not always documented that great. So unfortunately, I don't use the volunteers to the level that I would like to. If I had more time to devote to this, I could, I think, triple or quadruple the amount of people I'm helping, because then I could focus more on managing volunteers than doing the jobs myself. And setting up better processes for that. So if any of you have any connections to help me be able to do this full time or whatever, that really would push it over to help many, many, many more people. As is, though, that those last two steps there, the volunteer and then to the client, don't happen as much as I would like. I would say right now I'm personally doing over half the jobs. I print them, I box them up, and I ship them out. But I'm not particularly smart. You see, to do a real charity, this is not a 501c3. This is not a nonprofit. That's complicated, man. And I don't want to do that. And then to make it a business, I had a business lots of years ago, and the paperwork and the taxes were a nightmare. So, there's some way I could make money on this. There is. I'm sure there is. People would pay for a lot of this stuff. But I'm just not smart enough and I'm too lazy to figure all that out, so I give it away for free. I've been giving it away for free for over 10 years now. But it costs money. So I'm not just giving it away, I'm paying for it. So far, I've had one donor who has donated enough money that he's paid for pretty much shipping all year, which has been fantastic. That was Prusa Printers, Prusa 3D Printers. They donated the 3D printers that I use, and he gave me some cash to pay for the shipping and the materials, and that's been fantastic. But we're talking small fry. Like, in the past 10 years, I've had less than $6,000 in donations total. And as you'll see, if you start thinking about the shipping, to ship something like this costs about $10. So over the last 10 years, I've eaten that up many times over. If I were smarter, I'd find a way to make money off of this, but I'm not. So I have no plans currently of doing that. So on to the free part. As part of doing this for free, one of the things I did is I threw a big contest for accessibility in gaming 3D printing files. You can go view this. I will have a link to it. There's links to it on my website. I'll see if somewhere in the notes here for this documentation I can link to it. These are free files. You don't need to talk to me. You don't need to ask me. I did not even design most of these files. Some of my designs are in here. We can see a really old one of mine and this thumbstick extender down here in the corner. It's a little loopy thing you can stick your thumb in. Most of these are not mine, but they are free. You can download them, you can 3D print them, you can send them to a 3D printer and get them done. You don't need to talk to me. They're out there, they're available. They're community contributed, other people designed these. Let's look at a few of the most, popular ones. Since this contest, and you've probably seen some of these, Akaki Kumari, there's two of his on here, and that's this one here. He did some beautiful design work on these single hand controllers here. So you can see this, this Xbox controller here. This is for playing with your left hand only. And here are a few others from this contest. And you can see they don't have to be incredibly complex. You know, you might look at these ones from Akaki Kumari, and I'll show you that in detail here in a moment. And you might think that these have to be super complex, but if you look here, this one from Vixelius is just a really simple bracket that can hold your Joy-Cons together for the Switch for one-handed gaming. Or little silver down here on the bottom, just a leg brace to hold your Xbox controller. Or this from Timkey here, are just little thumbstick extenders for the PlayStation. Wonderful. Wonderful designs, extremely simple, solve big problems. Having the community involved has been fantastic. Let's take a look here at this one from Akaki. So I've set out rules for these designs whenever I reach out to people that they need to be able to clip on, be non-destructive. And this is for several reasons. You see, the game controller companies like PlayStation, Xbox, etc., they have put millions of dollars into designing these controllers to be robust and tough. You can throw these across the room and they still work. I want you to be able to utilize this without damaging it. So these kits, they just clip on and off without damaging the controller. I'm not going to take it all the way off because this is kind of a pain to put back on. But the way this one from Akaki Kumari works, now that I've made a mess of it here, trying to hold it up so you can see it while I assemble it here. That's making it difficult. So the way this works is this part straps to your leg. This part straps to your leg, and you can use it. You move the controller around to move the thumbstick. See that thumbstick moving? And then this part up here, you use your thumb to hit these, which move to the other side. It's modular, so you can pop this off if you don't need that. If you only need the thumbstick part to move on your leg. And it's got these triggers up here so that you can press the trigger and the shoulder button from this side. Just a wonderful design. He's done incredible work. He sells these on Etsy. If I can put a link here, I will put a link to Akaki's Etsy where he sells them, but I also have gotten permission from him to give them away for free. Those are the most requested because I don't advertise. Because of the amount of time it takes up, I have a waiting list all the time. I don't advertise, but Akaki puts out videos. They get very popular. They get picked up by gaming websites, and so people come to me and request these nonstop, and I print them. They're a difficult print. The documentation isn't that great for putting them together, but people do enjoy them, and they've helped a lot of people. I've sent tons of these out. And lastly, being egotistical. Listen, I'm paying out of pocket for this. I'm putting all this time and money into this. Why do I do it? I do it because people come to me and tell me I'm an awesome person. And that, as an egotistical person, is worth more than money sometimes. I get these messages all the time. He's getting used to the mod. It's taking him a bit, but it's giving him hope, and he doesn't feel like giving up anymore. Thank you. It may sound silly for a small thing, but you have saved a life. This isn't the first one of these I've gotten. I've gotten a bunch of them, and they all are on a similar theme. We are improving people's lives. We are helping them get back into gaming. We're improving their mental health, and it is making them happier. And that feeds my ego, which keeps me going. Being egotistical isn't necessarily a bad thing if it can help other people. And that is the Controller Project. You can find out more information at thecontrollerproject.com. And that is why, if you feel like getting into this stuff, you should try to be egotistical, lazy, and not particularly smart. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you online.